This is not your regular boy meets girl kind of story. It did start out like that, but soon enough, the girl's mother learned about the boyfriend's past, and it seemed that this love at first sight wasn't exactly what it seemed. 2 decades old photo confirms mom's theory about her daughter's boyfriend. Heidi Parker and Ed Savitt met for the first time in college and fell in love. Their relationship soon became serious and they moved in together. Then, Heidi learns something about Ed and their lives would soon completely change. Heidi applied for college and finally settled for Newcastle University in England. Although a little too far from her family, Heidi was happy to start a new life. It was this decision that had led her to meet the love of her life. Later on, she found out a jaw-dropping truth about his past, all thanks to a 2-decade-old photo album. Newcastle University didn't require students to live on the campus, but Heidi wanted to experience the life of a student at the campus. She got a spot in a living apartment for students and found some roommates. But as she lived a little while in that place, it didn't feel like the perfect home for her. So Heidi moved out in an apartment close to the campus the next year. Heidi found the perfect place after scouring the internet for the right home and had no idea that she would soon discover more than just a place to live. She found a studio apartment close to the campus, and she settled down in a place of her own. She headed back home to start moving out, and that's when she met the one. You never know when you will stumble upon the one. Heidi went to the student flat to give the new tenants her keys. She rushed, handed them the keys, smiled at them, and ran back to her studio apartment. She was so eager to decorate and make the studio her home, and looked at how small the student flat got in the rearview mirror as she drove away. She had no idea she would return there soon enough. Heidi received a message after she started to settle in the new apartment. It was something about a new tenant back at the old flat. There was a Facebook message from a guy called Ed and asked Heidi to help him out. In an interview, Heidi later explained that Ed didn't know how to use the washing machine in the student flat. Here's how he got in touch with her. He found a post with my name on it, realized I had lived there the year before, and decided I could help, she said. Heidi tried to explain to him in a message how to operate the washing machine, but it didn't help him. She decided to go back to the flat and show him how it's done. She also said that she agreed to go on Ed's flat basically because he was hot. No matter the reason, Heidi went over to the old flat and showed Ed how to use that washing machine. It was clear the student had been living with his parents until getting to the university. Heidi stuck around until Ed figured out how to use the washing machine, and as she was about to leave, Ed told her he wanted to ask her something. Heidi was about to leave the apartment when Ed mustered enough courage to ask her out for a coffee. It seems her help had paid off, she thought. She actually hoped he'd ask her on a date. I thought he was gorgeous. I thought he was actually amazing, Heidi recalled in an interview. All I can remember thinking is, wow, he is hot. After that first date, Heidi learned he was more than handsome. This hot guy's name was Ed Savitt, and he was studying business and psychology at Newcastle University. She learned a few more things about him, such as his plans for the future. He wanted to own a store, and that first date with her completely changed his entire college experience. Heidi agreed that they hit it off pretty much instantly. They were inseparable, and while they knew everything about each other, soon enough, they'll learn how wrong they were. After graduation, the two college sweethearts agreed to move to London. However, they didn't move in together. Heidi was focused on her PR job, and Ed was trying to open a coffee shop. Eventually, they did move in together, and the relationship progressed. It was time to visit each other's families and maybe take the big step. they had no idea that the meeting would completely change their lives. Heidi and Ed had been dating for 4 years, and it was the right time to finally have their families meet. The two were a bit nervous since it was an important moment. Meeting each other's family was intimidating, but Heidi and Ed would soon realize that this was not an ordinary introduction. The big day arrived, and Ed and Heidi's story got so strange that it made headlines all around the world. Ed and Heidi's mothers came at the restaurant where their children had made reservations. Fiona, Ed's mother, and Kay, Heidi's mother, hit it off very fast and began talking. As they were swapping stories, the women realized there was one particular event that they shared in common. It was a shock for everyone. During the dinner, Fiona and Kay realized their families were similar. They liked sailing and went to many vacations along the Mediterranean. Both mothers were enjoying their night chatting away. That's when Heidi and Ed gathered enough courage to share their big decision. The moms had no idea what was going on until their kids interrupted their chat. Kay and Fiona were definitely having a great time, so Ed and Heidi should be less nervous about how they would react to the big announcement. They were pretty nervous about their reaction, though. Gathering some courage, the couple told their moms that they were going to get married. The moms were very excited, but what made that day really special was one little story. Here's where things get interesting. Neither Fiona or Kay could believe their kids were now ready to get married. They began recalling childhood memories, and that's when Kay decided to share the moment when Heidi met her first boyfriend as a kid. Heidi was 6 years old when her family took her on a trip to Turkey. Heidi met a little boy there, and they were inseparable throughout the entire vacation, holding hands. Kay then changed the subject to make things feel less awkward for Heidi, but this small story would soon change Ed and Heidi's relationship. The two families hit it off so well, they still wanted to talk after the dinner was over. They talked about the wedding day, and everyone was smiling. They finally wrapped up the dinner and agreed to save the stories for the next times they would meet. But Heidi's mother had a nagging feeling that lasted for 2 weeks before she realized what was happening. The happy couple planned together with their family to have the wedding by the end of the year. It was spring already, and Kay decided to clean up the attic to have enough spaces for presents and wedding supplies. That's when she discovered something in the corner, old and dusty. It was a stack of old photo albums. Kay knew she had to look through these photos. You see, she wanted to look at the photos from her holiday in Turkey. Kay looked for the album that had Gumbit, July 1997, written on the cover. It had been 20 years since she looked through those photos. She looked at the photos, and as she looked through the album, there it was. She couldn't believe her eyes when she found this photo. Little Heidi was posing with her first boyfriend, and Kay knew who this mysterious blonde boy was. Her suspicions were correct after all. Was Kay imagining it, or was her suspicion correct? She looked at the little blonde boy and then recalled how Ed looked. Then she remembered the little boy's name was Ed as well. She knew she had to solve this mystery, and it sounded strange, but had to text Ed's mom and ask her about that photo. She sent little Ed's photo where he posed with Heidi and waited for an answer. As soon as Fiona saw the photo, she called Kay and told her that was her son Ed. So Heidi's first boyfriend was the same Ed that she fell in love with 2 decades later. I was screaming. It was just unreal, Kay said in an interview. Of course, I sent it to Fiona, she added, explaining that the other mom was as shocked as she was. When Kay sent me the photo of a little boy called Ed, I shrieked. Oh my goodness, that's Ed. It was unbelievable, Fiona recalls. They both talked about that vacation. During that 2-week holiday, Ed and Heidi held hands most of the time, said Kay. Now they had to let the children know about that moment. Kay sent the photo to Heidi after talking to Fiona, and she was so shocked she had to lie down. When my mom found the first photo of us, she sent it to me and I was stunned. I actually had to lie down. Ed was amazed as well. Said Heidi, "We couldn't believe it. Neither of the two remembered the 2-week vacation. Their story gets even more amazing." Loads more photographs came out. None of us had any idea whatsoever that Heidi and Ed had met before university, said Fiona to the Daily Mail. Even then, the childhood sweethearts were inseparable. We sent it around to our family and friends, and everyone was amazed, Heidi said. It was as if they were destined to be together, said Heidi. This was a real fairy tale. Then, as they got ready to get married, they were contacted by the Turkish Airlines. Heidi and Ed couldn't let this amazing story go, so they used the old photos on the wedding invitations. Their love story was quite crazy and unique. Kay realized that back in 1997, it was not just Heidi and Ed who met on that holiday, but all of us. The two families hanged out together, and now they're in-laws. The two families are now planning to go on vacations together, and the entire story made headlines all over the world. Not even Ed or Heidi can believe how strange their story was. We had been together for 4 years when we found out, so it's mad to think that we might have never known. It's crazy to think we could have gotten married, shared our lives together, but never found out about this, Heidi said. People keep telling us it must be fate, and it's like the plot of a movie, said Heidi. And she's right. They even recreated the image and posed in nearly the same outfits. What really impressed us was that Turkish Airlines was so impressed with their story that they sent them back to Gumbet, Turkey to remember those moments. We love telling people how we met, twice, said Heidi. Here are some photos from Turkey, together with the surprise Ed had for his beautiful wife. Recently, we had been back to Bodrum to see where we met. It was really exciting to go back to where the miracle began. Ed said that he's not one to believe in miracles. The story changed my life. The strong bond they had as kids still lingers now, 20 years after they first met. It's no wonder Ed and Heidi's story had become this viral on social media.